The Confederate flag, it is coming down in South Carolina. We're going to explain why that event is symbolic of the direction America is heading in and why this is a very unique time in American history. Then the feud continues. Governor Cuomo responds to Mayor de Blasio's scathing criticism. The governor's calm, but that doesn't make him any less cutting. And the New York Stock Exchange back up and running today. United Airlines flying. Both were grounded by computer problems yesterday. We're going to ask a cyber expert whether this was just a bad coincidence or something much worse. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we begin this evening with a seismic shift in America and how the taking down of the Confederate flag from the South Carolina State House is emblematic of what's happening on a broader level. Now, Republican State Representative Jenny Horn is now becoming the symbol of the flag fight. Now, listen to her plea yesterday on the House floor, and you'll know why.
I cannot believe that we do not have the heart in this body to do something meaningful, such as take a symbol of hate off these grounds on Friday. And if any of you vote to amend, you are ensuring that this flag will fly beyond Friday. And for the widow of Senator Pinckney and his two young daughters, that would be adding insult to injury, and I will not be a part of it.
And she got her way. Both houses voted to take down the flag. What a lot of people who follow South Carolina thought would have been impossible has happened. And Governor Nikki Haley today signed the bill, in fact, just a couple hours ago. Nobody could have predicted even a few years ago that a state like South Carolina would ever remove the Confederate flag. Now, the state has always been so resistant, and they've been fighting about it for decades. But just a few weeks after that horrible church shooting, it is gone. Now, this is not in isolation. Same thing with issues like gay marriage, legalized marijuana. Those issues have moved relatively at the speed of light here. Same thing with transgender rights. Who really would have thought that Bruce Jenner becoming Caitlyn would become so widely accepted? Well, those issues are resonating, and change, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, no one will debate change is happening. But it's a little bit more complicated on other issues. Take guns and abortion, for example, and even affirmative action, which the Supreme Court will be taking up again. And in those cases, you can argue the pendulum is swinging in the other direction. Those culture wars are still being fought, and the gun control women's rights folks are on their heels. But when the history books are written, this time will go down as an era of remarkable change, and not just because we have our first African-American president, who would have thought that, and could soon have our first woman in the White House. I want to bring in our panel right now and look not just at South Carolina, but at this chapter we're in right now. Richard Brodsky is a former Democratic New York State Assemblyman, now a senior fellow at Demos and professor at NYU. To his left, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. And to my right, Michael Tobman, independent political consultant. Republican strategist Bill O'Reilly joins us as always, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Gentlemen, thank you all here. And when we saw the South Carolina story, Richard, we started putting it in context this morning, and if you just step back, with all dysfunction that we see at different levels of government and everything else, things do change in this country. And sometimes if you step back, it's amazing the velocity at some of the change.
It is.
Whoever would have thought
Amazed.
Marriage, somebody being against gay marriage would be politically dangerous in the vast majority of this country.
I'm amazed at the velocity. It took 150 years after the end of the Civil War for the Civil War to end. If that's your idea of speed, it's not mine.
No, but you and I both would have agreed, even a month ago, that the idea that South Carolina would have taken down the flag and a Republican woman in South Carolina would have been the defining voice to do it. And today, the House
just some things I'm not going to stand up and cheer about. It's a good thing it's down. It's being nationalized. The Republicans in Congress today had a whole hoo-ha because they can't get the votes to do it outside of South Carolina. The Civil War ended in April of 1865.
Dominic, let me try it with you here. I'm getting nowhere with this Grinch, all right? I'm not saying it's roses and wine and everything's great in this country. God knows. Look at the stories we cover here night after night, and certainly there still is obvious cases of racial strife here. We've covered that and will continue to. But if you step back and you just look at just this calendar year, some of the things that have happened and changed, nobody at this table would have predicted it would have been possible.
Well, I don't know if I'm the right guy to talk to about on this one as well. So you're batting 1,000, Richard, because
I'm batting zero, actually. Go ahead,
you're batting zero.
I like
actually,
your math, yeah.
Because I mean,
wrong.
I
That's
give.
1,000.
Well, I'm not going that far. You are
Just keep
always
going.
correct,
Don't let it
sir.
distract you, yeah.
I give Governor Haley, Republican governor of South Carolina, enormous credit for going along with this. This may cost her political future. It's already cost the governor in South Carolina their future. So I give her a lot of credit for that. But I don't know if I mean, let's not forget, Richard, 9 people were shot in Bible study. And let's not forget, the whole state is not supporting this issue. It is still very much a contentious one. And also remember, they lost, I see Andrew's dying to get in on this one. They lost one of their own colleagues of state government.
Still, though, everybody who covered it thought maybe it could have gotten through the Senate.
They were shamed into doing it. They were shamed.
But it would never have gotten through the Assembly, and it did. And I'm not painting this all for altruistic reasons, and I don't think anything they said is necessarily wrong. But I do think if we just say, well, it's about time for everything, we do miss the boat that, geez, some things have changed that we never would have seen.
I've been wrestling all day with this dividing line on the issues that you covered in the setup, and why some issues there seems to have been such significant movement, and why on others there seems to be such intransigence. And I think the change is people are able to find the issues that don't really impact the way they live their own lives, but it impacts the way other people live their lives. So the Confederate flag, people have pride in it, rightly or wrongly, but it doesn't really impact their day-to-day whether the Confederate flag flies over the State House. Same with same-sex marriage. We've come to the realization that if another man wants to marry a man, it doesn't impact your marriage or your life. And recreational marijuana or medical marijuana, again, doesn't really seem to impact people's lives. Whereas guns or abortion or affirmative action, those are issues that do impact your life, even if you're not in the affected group. And I think that's progress. I think people have been able to separate themselves out of issues that have nothing to do with them. But I don't think we're going to see movement on affirmative action or on abortion or on some of those other issues, because guns especially, because people feel like that's impacting them directly.
Well, the Supreme Court may determine affirmative action, but I get where you're going with that. Do you agree with these guys that, hey, long time coming, it's about time, or... And I think that's true, but still, nonetheless, something had to change, and they did change it.
I think on the flag issue, something symbolic has happened. I don't think that's necessarily going to change anything in the country that much. I think it's a symbol that's changed.
But for 15 years, guys, there's been boycotts going on in South Carolina over the flag. And even if there's been economic consequences, they didn't do peep about it. It took losing one of their own, a tragic thing, unspeakable, with a guy with obvious connections with white supremacists and using the flag as a symbol to do it. But nonetheless, it did happen.
Yeah, but also, I mean, the flag issue is not over. You see now it's being extended into federal cemeteries. Will Confederate flags be able to be put on the graves of Confederate soldiers in federal cemeteries? Now that's going to be a big fight. I'm ambivalent on that. I've got ancestors on both sides of the war. I've got one who was in a Louisiana regiment, a French-speaking regiment, a guy named Henry Wassam. He fought for the South. Can you put that flag on his grave? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. This isn't going to stop.
Change happens slowly and then all at once. So the foundation for the flag issue, using that as an example, has been laid over the years. And Dominic, you're right. There was a governor that took a position on this, and it cost that person their job. I see an apt comparison in the boycott and the controversy around the naming of the NFL football team, the Washington Redskins, where it's an issue that wasn't a big deal to anybody, then it was a big deal to some, and folks are making a lot of noise about it, and we see it in the press from time to time. The NFL is saying no, no, no. The owners are saying no. But then the UN all of a sudden passes some sort of resolution or memorializing document saying this is racist, and then they have their trademark taken away because you can't protect something that's actually a derogatory term. So it happens slowly, foundations are laid, and then all of a sudden it happens at once in a crystallizing moment like the church shooting.
People of goodwill do this faster than South Carolina. In 1997, in New York, George Pataki was asked by David Paterson and Jeff Aubrey, black members of the state legislature, to remove the Georgia state flag from the Hall of Flags in the Capitol, and he did. Now, that's 18 years ago. I understand things
And
sometimes
Georgia
take too
pulled it too,
long.
yeah.
But, this is a treasonous, an emblem of treason and slavery. They rebelled against the government of the United States. And we're applauding that finally the light went on a little bit. I'm sorry. Good for everybody who did it, but don't tell me that this is a day to celebrate. This is a day to mourn.
I've always pegged you as a bit of a curmudgeon, but not such a cynic. I mean, this is progress. It's progress, even though it's overdue. Now, compared to civil
Would you say
rights
the same thing,
successes,
Tom? Would you say the same thing about gay marriage? That hey, they should have done this 15 years ago? Would you recognize
We didn't
that
fight
as a country
war over
we
gay
changed?
marriage, and millions of people weren't
You
killed.
didn't pay attention
this
in the open.
of
I
slavery.
conflated all the social changes that are going on in this country, and many problems still
As
obviously
a
exist.
curmudgeon and a cynic, all I can
That
tell
was
you
said
is it's enough already with
Yeah, but
this.
I have a question. I'm glad you brought up gay marriage because here, I mean, I've been supportive of gay marriage, and I was for a fairly long time. But you had for several thousand years, nobody much thought about gay marriage. Suddenly it comes down, there's gay marriage, and you have people who get absolutely hammered, ostracized, chased out of industries for saying that they oppose
the other
gay
side of
marriage
it,
now after just maybe 10 or 15 years of conversation. That's a little alarming to me. Like there's another side of that you got to watch on this.
Richard, let me ask you a question, or I'll throw it out to the table for fear of Mr. Brodsky is going to beat me under the table once I say this.
He's always doing the footsie. Go ahead, yeah.
Okay.
It's a reasonable fear.
Okay, so, and the flag should have been removed from the State House, and maybe perhaps put into a museum, but it's gone now. It's going to be gone effective tomorrow, I guess noon or whatever time. But what does that really mean for the black community? And I'm serious.
The symbol.
I mean, okay, it's a symbol, but there's still black on black crime right there in Columbia, South Carolina. There's still humongous education problems. So really, what is there for fear now? What is there really for the black community to celebrate? That's what I don't understand.
Well,
I
progress,
understand.
I'll say this much, and you're better at answers than me, but to me, progress can be incremental. And I think sometimes when people look at issues and if it's either all or nothing, they miss the boat sometimes. Look about the changes, for example, with the Redskins, for example, something as silly as an NFL team's name. It's not going to happen overnight, but sooner or later, they're not going to be able to have a stadium in D.C. if they don't change the name. They're staying in Virginia. If there's more boycotts, they're going to impact it. Change is always incremental in this country. And sooner or later, hopefully we do the right thing and we do something better. To suggest that it's taken 150 years longer than it should have, okay, I grant you all that, but status quo could have prevailed today, and it didn't. And South Carolina is a better place, and we're a better country as a
It'd be an
consequence.
easier argument to make about every other issue. We're talking
That's a fair
about
point, too.
the Confederate flag, a sign of treason, racism,
So that would-
slavery,
that's
and
an
murder.
apt point.
What
It's
is,
enough
what is it with this side of the table on this? It's symbols matter, and this is a symbol of institutional opposition to civil rights. The flag was only raised in South Carolina. The flag was only raised in South Carolina in 1961. The timing of that
but
isn't.
Andrew, see, this is the problem that I have with liberals. Progress matters when black kids are being delivered and born into single families at a rate of 70%.
Show me the magic.
Black kids. Hold on. You beat me up in a second.
You go,
Black
Dominic.
kids dropping out of high school like it's nothing.
Show me the magic wand that takes care of
what's-
all of that in one fell swoop, and I'll push
things
for it.
at
to
I
be
can only
implemented.
respond to
You
one
can
of
do
you.
two things at once, Dominic. You can address the real social and
It's
economic
almost,
problem,
to me, it's
and you can
almost like,
address the
without
symbolism.
offending those that fought to get rid of the flag, it's almost like when African Americans celebrated that OJ beat the criminal justice system. It wasn't going to improve your life, not one bit. So I've been wrestling with this issue all day long. The black community is happy, but what does it mean? It means absolutely nothing.
Symbolic.
I totally
It's
agree.
symbolic.
Symbolism matters.
Then you can do two things at once, Dominic. Look, would this be simpler for you people if we said
people.
that then? I'll start with you.
we take Brodsky's
By the way, the Fighting Irish, it's a compliment. Don't touch my name.
All right. If we talked about a German Nazi flag flying, I mean, and all of a sudden we're celebrating that. You know, there are some things that are
You wouldn't
obvious
be
to
happy
people
if
of
the flag
goodwill.
came down?
Can I
would
just
be
tell you something?
outraged that it was
Of
still
course,
flying.
Be
For
happy
sure,
that they came
yeah,
down?
for
That's where
sure
I've been
you.
going on
All
there,
right, you got to
For
stop.
sure.
Bourgeois.
Bourgeois.
That's another one of his words. All right, anyway, just when you thought it was beginning to wind down, I'm talking about the breakup of BFFs, Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio. I kid here, the feuding gets better. And if you haven't heard Andrew Cuomo's response and the tone, it is priceless. Stay with us. We'll have the latest between these two after this.